The opposition is still reeling from the shock of the Maharashtra and the Jharkhand assembly elections. Jharkhand provided some sort of face saver, but that was about it to the Congress party that has been devastated and decimated by what has happened in Maharashtra. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our special analysis of the impact of the Maharashtra elections, in particular on national politics and what it might do to understanding what happens next in the opposition bloc continues. On the program today, well-known political analyst Amitabh Tiwari, otherwise known as Political Baba on social media, will be bringing his special perspective in spotting the trends in the numbers. And the trends are indeed extremely interesting. While there is a lot of talk of polarization and counter-polarization, CSDS data actually shows that 22% of Muslims in Maharashtra voted for the Mahayuti, that is the BJP alliance. And we already know that the opposition's NDA, the Maha Vikas Aghadi, together got less seats than Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena. For the BJP, the challenge, of course, is how to manage Eknath Shinde's sensitivities while laying claim to the chief minister's chair. All that and more with our newsmaker today. Let me welcome Amitabh Tiwari to the program. His analysis is always very incisive. Thank you. Namaskar, Amitabh. One
Thank you.
big takeaway, right? Thanks, Amitabh. Right at the top, if there's one thing that leaps out to you looking at the data, what is it?
I think it's the impact of the women voter on the electoral results. All of us, when we go out on the field, when we are meeting with politicians, leaders, worker, cadre, there is a lack of women representation. In samples, when we do surveys for political parties, we struggle to get even 10% sample of women. Stringers are not women. Chief editors of most of the Maratha dailies are not women. There is a lack of political women leaders, cadre. So the feeling or the emotion or the discourse or the discussion of the women voter never reaches us. It's all about the male dominance of electoral politics. And that is what is leading most of us to confusing results or giving away even a tsunami like a result which is not visible to us because of this factor.
Does this mean that we can now say, looking at the data, that women don't necessarily vote the same way as men in their households?
See, if you see, even the CSDS data gives a lead of 17% to Mahayuti amongst women. So that's 50% for Mahayuti and 33% for women. So that's a gap or a lead of 17%. So that itself amounts to 8.5% vote share lead for the Mahayuti. For the women, for the males, the lead is 14%. So, of course, since everybody has not got it exactly right, even Access My India, the upper end was 200, while as the actual result was 235 for Mahayuti, which means that the support of the woman has actually been much higher than what has been anticipated. So, I estimate that the lead of the Mahayuti over the MVA amongst the women voters is minimum 20%. And we also have an angle of 22% of Muslims voting for the BJP or the Mahayuti in this election. Now, that we have seen is a number which we have seen in states like Gujarat for many decades now, that the Muslim population is voting in larger numbers for the BJP in a state like Gujarat. Here it means that even Muslim women who were perhaps the beneficiaries of this Ladki Behen scheme have gone out and silently voted for the Mahayuti because the Lok Sabha number was only 12%. To give context, of the entire women voting population, half of them were beneficiaries of the Ladki Bahin scheme. So, and they
Hmm.
amounted to almost 80,000 voters per seat, which means one-fourth of the voting population of any seat is accounted for by the Ladki Bahin beneficiaries.
Hmm. So, tell me this, going back to the Muslim vote, right? When you say 22% of, you say, and CSDS says, the 22% of Muslims in Maharashtra voted for the Mahayuti, and you're anticipating that large numbers among these could have been women because of the Ladki Behen scheme of the Eknath Shinde government. How do we understand this? Because the Panditri said that there has been polarization and counter polarization. There was batenge to katenge, and there was going to be counter polarization to that. Then Prime Minister came with ek hai to safe hai. How do we understand this 22% Muslim vote for the BJP alliance in the context of an impression that the Maharashtra election was polarized?
See, first of all, we need to understand that any election can be polarized only where the Muslim population is more than the national average. In
Hmm.
Maharashtra, the Muslim population is lesser than the national average. So polarization works in states like UP, Bihar, which has more than 20% population, West Bengal, Assam, which has 30-35% Muslim population, even Jharkhand to that extent, which had almost 15% Muslim population. Here, the Muslim population is 11-12%. So how can you imbibe fear in Hindus of the minority population when there are not much in number? Only two regions, which is Mumbai, 21%, and Marathwada, 15%, are regions where the Muslim population is high. That's why you saw Pankaja Munde, who comes from Marathwada, and Ashok Chauhan coming out openly and saying that they do not believe in this batenge to katenge concept. Correct. So actually, this has not worked. I mean, whatever BJP might try to portray that this is a vindication of ek hai to safe hai or a vote for batenge to katenge, I don't see the impact of that anywhere in the results.
So the question then is that if there could have been a potential backlash to the Batenge to Katenge slogan, you have written about how the Ajit Pawar factor actually helped the BJP to even this out. Ajit Pawar has been the surprise, as it were, result of this election, given that in the Lok Sabha he was being called even by BJP voters their weak link. There was a lot of anger in the BJP base. Why did we ally with this man? We called him corrupt not so long ago. The Prime Minister called him corrupt. Why did we keep him? Today, the Bhatija has outpowered the Chacha. How do we understand this? How do we understand?
No, see, we tend to overanalyze results always, and all of us are at fault for this. In the Lok
Hmm.
Sabha elections, the NCP SP did fairly well. What was the reason for that? Because BJP's Chanakya Niti gave only 4 seats to Ajit Pawar, which means that he contested only on 24 Vidhan Sabha seats.
Hmm.
Whereas in Vidhan Sabha, that party is contesting on almost 55 to 60 seats. The party had 42 MLAs. So on these
Hmm.
30 seats where the Ajit Pawar MLAs or faction did not contest in Lok Sabha, the cadre and the leaders and the voters voted en masse for the NCP SP because that symbol was absent there. It led to the success of NCP Sharad Pawar. Now, one of every 4 voters of NCP originally is a Muslim voter or a Muslim supporter. So Ajit Pawar knew this, that without having the support of this Muslim voter, it is very, very difficult to do well in elections. So he
Hmm.
tried to change his image, and thanks to his strategies, perhaps, is that uh, he tried to represent the himself as a secular force within this alliance, championing the rights of the secular. You had tripling of the or a significant increase in the salaries of the madrasa teachers. You had many other schemes for minorities as well. So he
Hmm.
fought for those schemes, gave tickets to 10% Muslim candidates, and 2 of them have won. Only 10 Muslim candidates have won in Maharashtra. Of them, 2 of them have won from Ajit Pawar. So a tactic shift uh, towards wooing the core Muslim support, because when you have Muslim support plus BJP support and Shinde Sena support transferring seamlessly votes to each other, that's why his MLAs have done fairly well. It is like 75-25 percent strike rate in the fight against Sharad Pawar.
Hmm. But here's my question. If you believe that the overwhelming, and we should call it the Y factor now and not the X factor, is women, then I think Eknath Shinde is likely to feel that this was his win, even though the BJP is by a mile and more the largest party. Whose win is this? Whose win is this, according to you?
No, see, everybody has played a role, but yeah, I mean, when you went to the ground and saw, there was significant support for Eknath Shinde because people believed that he was the one who was delivering the schemes. And since he is the one who has come up the ranks, see, Devendra Fadnavis and Ajit Pawar have had a middle class or upper middle class backgrounds, but since Eknath Shinde represents the common man or the poor. The poor have an affinity towards Eknath Shinde, just like they have an affinity towards Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister. And this always works in the favor of such leaders who have risen up the ranks. That's why we see a lot of support for Eknath Shinde amongst the women fraternity and amongst general voters when he went to the ground. And he was leading across surveys in the best CM question. He was leading across surveys.
The question then is what changed in 5.5 months? What happened from the Lok Sabha elections where the BJP took a knock? There was palpable sympathy for Uddhav Thackeray to this point where actually, in some ways, the biggest loser is the Congress because for the Congress party, it has been the third consecutive defeat in Maharashtra. And alongside, it hasn't done well in any election since the Lok Sabha verdict of 2024. What changed?
See, I think again the genesis of this is in the Lok Sabha results itself because we tend to overanalyze, as I said. The vote share lead for Maha Vikas Aghadi was only 0.4%. So it was almost equal vote share, 44% each. The Lok Sabha results look like 1730. So that it's a way landslide for the Maha Vikas Aghadi. But if you look at the assembly segments, the Maha
Hmm.
Vikas Aghadi was leading only in 153 and the Mahayuti was leading in 126. 145 is the simple majority mark. So the Mahayuti or the Maha Vikas Aghadi was leading in only 8 seats above the simple majority mark. That's number one. So that secondly, 14 of the Lok Sabha seats saw a very close contest where the victory margin was less than 5%. Now that's a very close contest. 9 of them were won by the Maha Vikas Aghadi. Now 9 of them translated into 54 assembly segments. And now after
Hmm.
the Lok Sabha elections, in fact, I call margins up to 10% as close contest because up to
Hmm.
10% you need only a swing of 5% to turn around that result. So it is
Hmm.
so even a 10% victory margin is a close margin because a swing of 5% is required. 21 seats witnessed a less than 10% victory margin contest. That is almost more than 100 seats. Now, what after that, if you see? So after that, what happened? Of course, they have taken course correction, and we've seen the women turning up in large numbers. I think what has also happened is that the Maratha agitation has weakened. Whereas the reverse OBC polarization has increased. Even if you see the CSDS numbers, you see that there is
Hmm.
a swing of 23%, minus 13% for MVA, and plus 10% for Mahayuti amongst the OBCs. Now, that is a huge thing. That itself translates into roughly 6 to 7% vote share. There is also, because of the local elections, a 19% swing away from the MVA towards smaller parties amongst the Muslims. That itself translates into roughly 4% vote share. Even amongst Dalits, because of the presence of smaller parties like VBA, BVA, and many other smaller parties, the support which the Maha Vikas Aghadi received amongst Dalits has also weakened. So the support of Maha Vikas Aghadi, largely the DMK alliance which it formed, the Dalits and the Muslims went, a large section of them or a significant section of the loss was accounted for by others. And even amongst
Hmm.
Marathas, they lost support because Manoj Jarange Patil did not openly ask for votes for them. See, again, when we analyze the Lok Sabha results, we tend to believe that this was a vote for the Gaddari factor or Uddhav Thackeray or Sharad Pawar benefited from the betrayal factor. But if you see the leads of the 6 zones in Lok Sabha 2024,
Hmm.
it was not a vote for Gaddari. The MVA was leading in 2 regions, Vidarbh and Marathwada. Vidarbh, the hub of farmer suicide agri distress, Marathwada, the hub of Maratha agitation. Now, in Western Maharashtra, where Sharad Pawar was in action, the lead of MVA was just 5 seats, 35-30 out of 70 seats. And in Mumbai, where the Uddhav Thackeray faction was fighting the legacy battle, the lead was 2016, only 4 seats stayed. So it was not a vote for the betrayal factor. It was a vote for local issues, and perhaps MVA understood it wrongly. And then in the one-to-one contest this time, clearly the Shinde and Ajit Pawar have emerged victorious.
Now, Amitabh, I want to ask you, the CSDS data clearly shows that both among Dalits and Muslims, the Maha Vikas Aghadi lost support. The number of Muslims and Dalits who voted for them in the Lok Sabha did not move in the same way in the assembly elections. How do we understand that? Do we, especially the Muslim vote, right? Uh, how do we understand? One factor is the women factor. So the women vote transcended religious divides. But why did the Dalit vote, according to you, move back, as it were, to the BJP led alliance? And how do we explain the loss in Muslim vote? We also know that in many seats where the Muslim population was about 25%, the turnout had decreased as well. So there was a lack of enthusiasm among Muslim voters for the MBA. Why is that?
See what happens that in a Lok Sabha election, the others got only 12% vote share, while historically others have got on an average 25% vote share in Maharashtra. So there were a lot of contenders for the Muslim vote, smaller parties. AIMIM, Samajwadi Party had an alliance, but it contested on a much higher number of seats. Then you had a new party called as Islam. And then if you see on 157 seats, the number of Muslim candidates were more than one, which contested. So there was a split of Muslim votes. Then similarly for Dalits, if you see the Dalit voter is not shifting to BJP. Actually, BJP or Mahayuti also is receiving 1% lesser support, but it is moving towards parties like VBA or a BVA or PJP or a RSP, etc., etc. And if you see this time, what has happened is that this constitution change off the cuff mark of Rahul Gandhi has actually reached every nook and corner of Maharashtra. And
In
was
Lok Sabha, in Lok Sabha. Why didn't
in,
that
in
work here?
no, in Vidhan Sabha, it was the opposite. The
Correct.
constitution remark of made in Washington, I think perhaps, has reached every nook and corner of Maharashtra in Vidhan Sabha election. And thanks not to BJP, thanks to Prakash Ambedkar's VBA. VBA has ensured that this reaches every nook and corner of Maharashtra because of, if you see his speeches and his rallies, he was clearly targeting the Maha Vikas Aghadi in this election, perhaps not happy at not being included in the alliance. So a mix of all these factors perhaps has led to this.
What does this mean for national politics? Because you see, if you look at some of these trends, it actually means that the Congress's idea of bringing Dalits, OBCs, and Muslims. You see, the Congress went big on caste census in pursuit of the OBC vote. The Congress went big on the constitution in pursuit of the Dalit vote. And the Congress has assumed that the Muslim vote will always come to it. The Maharashtra elections append some of these assumptions. What does this do to strategy, to political strategy, to our understanding of politics?
No, see, first of all, one cannot have a one fits all strategy for all states. Now, if you see
Yeah.
the caste census pitch is actually very intriguing and might have been harmful for MVA in the Lok Sabha, in the Vidhan Sabha elections. Because if Marathas get reservation, it will come at the expense of whom? It will come at the expense of OBCs because there is a cap on 50%. Even if you say that
Yeah.
we'll come and remove this cap, state governments cannot do this. People understand this. More so when the Maratha reservation thing has been turned down by the Supreme Court twice. So people are aware of this, that there is a cap, only central government can do it. And if they get reservation, which Manoj Jarange Patil has said, that in whatever form we should get reservation. Correct. But then it will come at the cost of OBCs. If Marathas get reservation, it could even come at the cost of Kunbis, who are Marathas but already OBCs. So this pie is small. If you bring more players into this pie, you are disturbing the entire social equation. Second is the Dalits. Now Dalits, the change of constitution was not the original or the main reason. It was plain blank that if BJP comes to power, they will end reservation. Correct? Change of constitution, will lead to the end of reservation. Now, people have seen that the BJP does not have the numbers to end reservation. It is relying on Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu largely
Yeah.
in power. So this, again, this rhetoric or this narrative did not work because they are not in a position to change the constitution. And bread
Yeah.
and butter issues were not focused on. If I was on one of the channels and one of the research heads of Congress party had come, so when I asked that, why was Rahul Gandhi raising all these issues of Adani, constitution, caste census? These are national issues. Does not matter. He said, I mean, national leaders will raise national issues. But then I said, who raised the local issues? Because the
Yeah.
local leadership was busy fighting who will be CM, or was busy fighting which party will get how many tickets till 29th of October. From 29th
Yeah.
to 4th, they were busy on cajoling the rebels to drop out from the race. And then just 2.5 weeks before the election, you announce your manifesto promises, and none of them were new. So all these promises were standard promises. So why were they not released just like Karnataka one by one many months before the elections? Because all of these promises were standard promises which Congress party is making across states.
Yeah. But talking about this Adani issue, it's quite interesting. You see, in the previous Lok Sabha, 2019, if you remember, Rahul Gandhi was kind of focused on the Rafale issue, and it didn't translate into any palpable success. This time, the Congress is so focused on the Adani issue, right? It is such a big part of their social media narrative, but it's not connecting to the everyday lives of voters. So, was the Congress campaign too esoteric?
Yeah, because again, see, campaigns are stories. You're just
Yeah,
telling one part of it. Let's say, for example, a particular corporate group, as mentioned by in the US, has bribed some of the state governments in the country. Let's say it's true. How does it impact the life of you and me? The Congress
yeah,
is not able to tell this story.
yeah,
That because of perhaps these bribes, what is happening is that your electricity rate is going up, perhaps, or the price of this is going up, or the price of tickets are going up, flight tickets are going up because the airport charges are increasing. The Congress party is not completing the story. It is not explaining to the voters how does this alleged Adani Modi or Adani BJP nexus impact us, negatively impacts us. It's not able to tell that story. It is the second leg of the story. It is just telling one part of it. And people are like, how does it impact us?
Finally, a lot has been said about the fact that the BJP made a strategic calculation this time to not overuse the prime minister, neither in Maharashtra nor before that in Haryana. The BJP seems to have decided to limit the exposure, very different from earlier assembly elections where it was double engine. Modi was an equal face of the campaign to the local BJP face. How does this, what is your takeaway from this shift in strategy?
So see, if you see Haryana,
Hmm.
all the prominent reasons for the anger against the BJP, which was the farmer
Yeah.
protest, the wrestler protest, and the Agniveer protest, were not the undoing of the state government. They were all undoings of perhaps the central government. So that is what the state leadership was able to convince the voters, that don't focus on these issues. These issues we do not have our control. It is not our fault. And Modi, by not doing a lot of rallies, I think he did only four, clearly took a back step, because if he would have campaigned a lot more, all these issues would have gathered momentum, and that could
Hmm.
may have negatively impacted the campaign. Similarly, in Maharashtra, when we were discussing about those two regions, again, those central government policies also have a lot of role in that. I mean, Maratha agitation, okay, Maratha reservation, if it has to be given or the cap has to be increased, the central government has to play a role, has to play a part. So again, most of the anger was against the central government, the inflation, uh, Adani, Ambani, let's say, Nexus, etc. So again, he has taken a back step. But I would say it is smart strategy. I mean,
Mhm.
as a leader, you need to identify your strengths and weaknesses. He has identified that these pitches were perhaps tricky for him to come out and open the innings. Let the local leadership open the innings, and when your bench strength is strong, like BJP, they themselves have been able to carry the party to victory. Also, it helps to now build the local leadership. Now, BJP has moved from a presidential style campaign to a local campaign, talking about micromanagement, local contest, hyper local contest. But this is good for the BJP in the sense that if you have to find the successor of Narendra Modi in the next 5 years, then you need to find people from this from amongst these state elections, and some of these leaders could emerge. So the second line of leadership, which was weakened under the leadership of Modi, will again the party is again trying to rebuild this over the next 5 years by focusing on hyper local campaigns.
And in conclusion, where does that leave the Congress, which had taken the position of the pivot of the India bloc or opposition politics? That is going to be tough for it if it, if it keeps losing states. That role will be tough for it, even if there is a distinction between state elections and national politics.
Yeah, so just to give a context, BJP and Congress fought themselves against each other on 90 assembly seats in 2024 Maharashtra. 52 were won by Congress and only 38 by the BJP. Now they have faced each other in 75 seats. 65 has been won by Congress and only 10 has been won by the 65 has been won by the BJP and only 10 by the Congress. Only 10 by the Congress. So this is the scale. This is a massive change which has happened. Now again, every election is different. We do, the party needs to analyze the results deeply. If you and I can analyze that the lead was only 8 seats, why was the party so confident that it is a vote for betrayal and they're going to
Correct.
So I think they've got 99, and as Rajdeep famously says, but they behave like they've got 272. Even in 2024, the BJP tally is more than all the India bloc combined, and that's a huge achievement. So so when you go to any war, you have to do a proper SWOT analysis, and perhaps Congress is not able to identify its weaknesses and is overplaying on its strength. Also, all these issues, this Adani Ambani alleged nexus, this constitution change, this caste census pitch, has already worked in one election, let's say, or some part of it has already worked. So it has to try for new narratives, new issues in this hyper. When BJP, who used to contest a presidential style, is fighting a hyper local election because it realizes that local issues have become paramount, then why is a party which was actually fighting on a hyper local issues is contesting sort of a presidential style election with Rahul moving around and raising the same issues again and again? So they have to go back to the drawing board, strategize. Now you have Priyanka in parliament, so maybe Rahul is good at what is good at perhaps establishing a connect with the voters. So he might need to again restart or rejuvenate his Bharat Jodo Yatra, go around, meet people, see what are the issues, and then strategize based on his direct feedback with the voters.
All right, Amitabh, we'll leave it there. A fascinating election with many, many ripple effects on not just state politics, but also national politics. After all, every election is an act of psychological warfare. And that is what we have to understand, that campaigns are about storytelling, but consequences are about morale. And while, no party ever dies in Indian politics, rebuilding takes hard work. And the work is often away from clever social media videos to actually bread and butter even within party structures, which is where the Congress is in fact really weak, as has been pointed out by various congressmen and women themselves. Amitabh Tiwari, otherwise known as Political Baba on social media. Thank you. Always a pleasure. Take care. Talk to you soon. Namaskar. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo's Story and support independent, robust journalism.